This video is going to be broken down into 3 key parts. I'm going to go over the raw anatomy first to help you understand that, and then with the physiology of organs really helps you understand the anatomy. That's never been more true than for the heart. So I'm going to go over the physiology at that layer to help you maintain and iron in the information. And then lastly, I'm going to go over whatever bonus questions and that they may ask you on an exam, lab exam, or otherwise. So let's jump in. This here is the right auricle. This is the left auricle. This is the right ventricle. This is the left ventricle. This here is the apex of the heart. Apex typically means top. Over here it just means this point at the bottom of the heart. That is the apex of the heart. Let's open it up. So this here, this cavity, there are 4 chambers to the heart. This is the right atrium. This is the left atrium. This is the right ventricle, making this the left ventricle. This middle area is called intraventricular septum. Intraventricular septum, and then this type of muscle inside is called papillary muscle. Papillary muscle, the backdrop over here. These are valves. So this is a tricuspid valve. We know it's the tricuspid because tri means 3, and you can see on the back is 1 and 2 on the side, so it's 3. This one here is the bicuspid valve, so it just has 2 connections on the corner. 1, 2. Tricuspid has 1 on the back, 2 on the corner. So tricuspid, bicuspid. This is made of what's called chordae tendineae. Chordae tendineae. This under here is the first semilunar valve, which is the pulmonary valve. And this is the second semilunar valve, the aortic valve. The aortic valve that goes into the aorta. It's called semilunar valves. There's only 2. This is the second, because you could see that it has kind of like a half moon shape to it. So that's why semilunar. And again, there's only 2. 1 and 2. Pulmonary and then aortic. This is the aorta. The aorta has 3 parts to it: the ascending aorta, the aortic arch, and the descending aorta. This here is the pulmonary trunk, which is also known as the pulmonary artery. This here is the superior vena cava. Superior vena cava. Superior vena cava breaks off into 2 other veins, which is the brachiocephalic vein, the right one, the right brachiocephalic vein, and the left brachiocephalic vein. And then it nestles in with the aorta, and over here on the aorta, this is called the brachiocephalic artery. Right brachiocephalic vein, left brachiocephalic vein, right brachiocephalic artery, which is part of the aorta. Then you have the left common carotid artery and the left subclavian artery. Left common carotid and left subclavian artery. On the back here, you have the right pulmonary artery and the left pulmonary artery. Then you have the right pulmonary veins and the left pulmonary veins. So now let's dig into the physiology. All right, digging into physiology here. Deoxygenated blood is finally returned to the heart. So this area, the right side of the heart, is deoxygenated blood. So the right atrium has deoxygenated blood that is then pumped through the tricuspid valve into this cavity, the right ventricle, that then pumps it into the pulmonary trunk, passing through the first semilunar valve here, and goes through the pulmonary artery and is going to the lungs. In the lungs, all the gas exchange happens over here, and you see CO2 exit and oxygen come in. The hemoglobin gets oxygenated, red blood cells bring them back, and they're escorted back over here through the red part here. These are the pulmonary veins. So the right and left pulmonary veins fills this cavity, which pumps into here, which is the left atrium. And in the left atrium, it is then pumped through the bicuspid valve, because we know there's 2 here. You can physically see it. And then it goes into the biggest part of the heart, which is the the biggest part of the muscle of the heart, which is the left ventricle. The left ventricle is very strong, so it makes a big pump and it shoots the blood, the oxygenated blood, through the second semilunar valve, the aortic valve, into the aorta, and the aorta escorts it all throughout the rest of the body. They may ask you about some coronary blood supply, so we're going to take an anterior view over here just to understand physiology and some of the anatomy. From here, understand that veins generally carry deoxygenated blood from the body to the heart to get reoxygenated, so that's what veins do. Arteries usually, arteries take oxygenated blood to the rest of the body. There are some exceptions to that we're going to go over, but first you should understand how the heart gets fed, because the heart is a very powerful muscle here. So it needs oxygen, especially muscles that work out a lot, right? So this is the aorta. The aorta actually has connection, which is this red part leading down here. This is the RCA. That's kind of hugging into the right auricle. The RCA branches off as well, but it feeds generally the right atrium, the right ventricle, even the electric conductivity of the heart. It all happens through here. And that feeds off the aorta. This is the left coronary artery. Left coronary artery branches off into two different areas. So number one, you have the circumflex artery that wraps around over here. And then you also have this part over here becomes a left anterior descending artery, which is also, these arteries feed the left ventricle, the left side of the heart, which is the strongest part of the heart. So this area here is called the left anterior descending artery. Left anterior descending artery. The key problem with this is that if this gets a blood clot, this is also known as the widowmaker, because a blood clot enters here or this area gets clotted, you got to rush into an angioplasty or to put a stent in there, because I read a stat that outside the hospital there's a 12% chance of survival. If this happens outside the hospital, it's better in a hospital setting of only 25%. So that's why it's called the widowmaker. Alright guys, in summary, the heart has four chambers. You have the right atrium, the right ventricle, the left atrium, and the left ventricle. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's four chambers. It has two semilunar valves, which is the pulmonary valve here, and on the back over here, the aortic valve right over here. So that's two semilunar valves, and it has one artery in the whole body that carries deoxygenated blood. That would be the pulmonary artery. The pulmonary artery. So this dark patch over here, they may ask you, this is a bonus question. This currently is called the fossa ovalis. It used to be in fetal development. Fetus obviously just meaning Latin for offspring. When we were in the womb of our mothers, this used to be called the foramen ovale. This used to be an opening. Foramens mean openings. This used to be an opening that allowed blood to cross the atria and bypass pulmonary circulation. And then, so now, this closes 6 months after birth. It is now called the fossa ovalis. The second part that they may ask you on this model as well is this white area on the top here. This is called the ligamentum arteriosum. The ligamentum arteriosum. It used to be called the ductus arteriosus, which allowed oxygenated blood from the placenta to bypass the lungs in utero. So now it's called the ligamentum arteriosum. And should they ask you, this again is called the fossa ovalis.